Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Real Steel, where we talk all things Pittsburgh Steelers. No BS, just The Real Steel. I'm your host, Jeff, and I'm joined today on video by my co host, Polt. And the season is just about here. It's right around the corner. We got about 1 week to go until we get some real regular season football. And I'm excited. How about you, Polt? What's going on?
Oh man, I'm so excited. It's kind of crazy. The summer's almost over, but football's in the air, and I'm ready to get this season kicked off. I will say this is definitely a different take on how we do this thing, getting to look at you and show the video with the audience. So I'm excited to get the season started.
Heck yeah. I mean, we've always done it over FaceTime where we can see each
Yeah.
other, but we're trying a new thing here, and hopefully we can get this up on YouTube and get a new thing going there. So pretty excited for what this season of The Real Steel has to come. So we got a busy episode here today to talk about a number of different things. Um, I think really running from a little bit of a recap of the preseason all the way up to a preview of the first week, the Falcons game, and kind of covering everything in between. So
Yeah.
I think we should just go ahead and dive right in. So the first thing I want to talk about with you is maybe just running through some takeaways from the preseason. The Steelers went 0-3, right? Record
Right.
doesn't really matter in the
No.
preseason. We said last year, watching the preseason, where Kenny Pickett looked awesome and the offense looked like everything was clicking, that we were really excited. And we, I would say, bet a little heavily on the preseason. And I think we learned our lesson. So, nonetheless, I think there's still some takeaways that we can gather from things that we saw. So
Just
I want to start with you. Oh, go
Well,
ahead.
just one thing to point out with the records. I mean, like you said last year, we got overhyped because of how good it is. I think we got to remember to keep ourselves even keeled and not get underhyped in this scenario. If you look at the records of the teams in the preseason, the Ravens went 1-2, the Bengals, Browns, and Steelers all went 0-3. And we think we're going to
Oh,
be one of the best divisions in football. So, and then also the Chiefs went 0-3. So, I think just got to keep that in mind that it is preseason and a lot of teams don't play everybody. So, just keep your expectations. Don't let the preseason determine your expectations like we did
yeah,
last year.
and the teams that went, I think, undefeated in the preseason were like
The Jets
Tennessee
did,
and,
the
and
Jaguars,
Denver.
Tennessee, Denver,
Chicago was 4-0.
the
They played Philly.
Vikings, and yeah, that's it. I mean, and like the 49ers were
So
1-1-1, Falcons were 0-3. So yeah, uh, you really can't take anything from the preseason.
doesn't matter all that much.
No.
Well, anyways, let's dive in. Let's dissect things a little bit and talk about maybe, I don't know, what do you think? Maybe your 3 to 5 biggest takeaways from the preseason in general. What you
Yeah.
think is the biggest storylines, or
Yeah.
how you kind of feel after those 3 games.
Yeah, you want me to lead off? We'll bounce back and forth.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go.
All right.
Let's bounce back and forth.
I think my biggest, and this is kind of a very generic one, but I think my biggest is the offense will be fine. Everybody's been freaking
Okay.
out about how bad our offense has been, considering we scored 12 points, 3 points, and 17. That's 32 points in 3 games. It kind of looked reminiscent to last year where we couldn't score points, but I do believe that it's the preseason. It's a new offensive scheme, a lot of new players. And I really do think there was a lot of experimenting going on and a lot of simple
Hmm.
game planning and simple play calling that kind of led to that. So I wouldn't put too much stake in it. Just like last year, we overreacted and thought we were going to be the greatest show on turf. I don't think we're going to be as bad as our preseason showed this year.
Yeah, and early on, a lot of miscues too, and you don't
Right.
necessarily know what the full depth chart is, so you're going to be moving people around, especially on the offensive line. So maybe
Absolutely.
not the full picture for really what's going on. So that's comforting. I'm gonna flip a little bit to the other side of the field, and I'm actually gonna say our defense is going to be better than fine. I
Okay.
think our defense is going to be lights out, one of the top 5 defenses in the NFL this year. I think just what we saw with some of these skill players, we know what we have
Yeah.
in TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and Minka Fitzpatrick, and Nick Herbig really got rolling in the preseason, and you're going to have other guys step up like Keanu Benton, Joey Porter Jr. Hopefully we see some good cornerback play from maybe Corey Trice, Cam Sutton when he comes back. So
Yeah.
I think the defense throughout the preseason, even in some of the second and third strings, looked pretty solid. So that to me was my biggest takeaway. I'd say is
Yeah. And
defense looks
and
good.
Well, and on top of that, like a lot of those top players you talked about, Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, Alex Hyde, none of them really played, and the
Hmm.
defense still did okay. I mean, what we gave up 29 and 24, but that's third and fourth stringers in the second half. I, yeah, I agree. I think the defense will be fine. My takeaway with the defense was I actually think the defense will, because of the offense, will be able to be a top five, kind of like what you said. And this kind of goes into what our season is going to look like. But if you think about the last couple of years, our offense has been so incredibly bad, and we can't
Yeah.
stay on the field. So the defense is on the field all the time. We led the league
Hmm.
in 3 outs for the last couple of years, and I think that little bit of rest will allow these guys to be more fresh and make more plays. Um, and so yeah, I have a very similar takeaway. I think the defense is going to be awesome.
Love it. Let's go with your second takeaway. What do you
All
have?
right, my second one is I do think the offensive line needs a little bit of work. It's a
Hmm.
work in progress, I guess it's a better way to put it. Now with the Nate Herbig injury, who was looking like going to be the starting center, our rookie center Zach Frazier out of West Virginia will be the starting center week one. Um, so we got to deal with his growing pains. Broderick Jones, I, I don't know what they're
He
doing
doesn't
with
know where
him.
he's playing.
I mean, they flipped him at all training camp and all preseason, left tackle, right tackle, and I don't know. I think they just need to pick a side for him, probably the left side, and just let him figure it out. And they
Hmm.
didn't do that. And then you know Troy Fatanu again. I'm gonna screw that up all year, but Troy Fatanu, when does he come back? Is it going to be Dan Moore for a few weeks? We don't really know. Nobody's really said. We hope Fatanu's back for week one. So yeah, I just think there's going to be some growing pains. I do think they're going to work through it. It seems like they've had issues in the past and they've been able to get through it. So hopefully Pat Meyer can do that again with this unit.
Yeah.
They did not
Sen-
look good.
no, they didn't, and there were a lot of miscues, particularly snapping the ball and
Yeah,
a lot of sacks that the quarterbacks took and collapsing of the pocket. So the center to me is as high on Zach Frazier when we drafted him, and hopefully it just takes a little bit of time for. Hopefully it doesn't take much time actually
yeah,
for to kind of step into that role, but that's an area where I'm a little bit concerned about. And coming off of what we had the past couple of years, center hasn't really been a super strong spot. So
right.
we kind of just got to wait and see. But I think that's a pretty good one. Um, let's stay on the offensive side of the ball here, and I'll give you my second takeaway. I think it's going to be fine with just Van Jefferson as our number two receiver.
Okay.
Um, I, I think we know Pickens is our one. We saw a lot of experimentation with Calvin Austin. We saw Scotty Miller, who made the team, um, and Roman Wilson made the team too, and he'll hopefully be back. He's been practicing this week.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's not out for too much time. I think Van Jefferson is going to be slotted into that number two role. And you look at how he was utilized on the Rams, particularly as a deep threat. I feel like he's got the skill set and he has the experience. And to me, I feel like he's going to do fine as our number two on the team, at least maybe until Roman Wilson's back. But I don't know if Roman
Yeah.
Wilson's going to slot into that two right away. I think we're probably going to see Van Jefferson play a little bit, and I'm okay with that. I feel pretty good about what I've seen from him.
Yeah, he actually had a decent preseason, and they said he had a really good camp. Um, so I mean that's good. I'll actually say that one of the things I had written down was we need a receiver, and
Oh, really?
I'm not saying that Brandon Ayuk, which we'll get into, or anything like that, but I do think um, that they are lacking a little bit. I'm not saying that they're in horrible shape, and if they don't get somebody, we're screwed. I'm just saying I think we need another difference maker. We had George Pickens. And one of the guys in the room might become that difference maker. But I think at the moment, I don't feel entirely comfortable or confident in the playmakers we have with I guess the five receivers we kept. I do think it would be and Des Fitzpatrick, who had a great preseason in camp, they cut him. So I don't know. It feels like they almost have a plan, even if it's a backup to Brandon Ayuk. But I would like to see them go do something.
Yeah, so I would throw a question to you and say, number one, do you think Deontay Johnson was enough of a playmaker that would kind of satisfy that need had he
I
stayed on
do.
the team. Okay, and my second question is, what if that difference maker is someone who's not in the wide receiver room, but it's someone like Pat Fryermuth, and
That's
he's
a good
really
point.
utilized as a wide receiver in this Arthur Smith offensive scheme.
Yeah, that's no, I
I've
didn't think about that.
seen a lot of hype around Pat Fryermuth, hopefully getting utilized in the center of the field. I mean, in terms of fantasy football, he's one of the guys who's getting a lot of hype
Yeah.
around, being a top five, top 10 tight end this year, perhaps. So I don't know. Maybe
No,
maybe
that's a
Pat
good point.
Fryermuth is that guy.
Well, that's a good point. They do play a lot of two tight end sets, I believe, with in Arthur Smith's offense. So it looks like Darnell Washington will. I mean, at least in the preseason, he was the second tight end in snaps, second highest snaps of tight end with the starters. And then Pat
It'd be
Fryermuth.
great
So,
to see him be utilized a little
well,
bit
right,
more.
but Fryermuth maybe just becomes, like you're saying, more of just a receiving guy, and maybe he does take that step. Absolutely. I do think there's potential for some of these guys, whether it's Calvin Austin, whether it's Roman Wilson, or even Van Jefferson or Pat Fryermuth to take a step and be that playmaker. Just at the moment, I don't know if I see it yet. I
Hmm.
think there's
Yeah,
potential.
Calvin Austin had a really strong preseason. They said he looked awesome in
And
camp
Russell
too,
Wilson's
and
only said beautiful things about him. Like he's
yeah,
only spoken very highly of him.
right. And Russell Wilson's played with some pretty darn good receivers.
Yeah.
And we don't really know what we have in Roman Wilson, right? I
No.
mean, he was, I don't want to say he was underutilized at Michigan, but when they're not throwing that many balls and you're the
Yeah.
leading receiver, it's hard to kind of get a full picture
And he
of
got
what you have
hurt
going
so early in camp.
on. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But that's kind of my second takeaway is I actually think we're going to be okay at wide
Okay.
receiver with
I
Van
like that.
Jefferson. And I don't think a move is really necessary.
Okay. All right, we can touch on that later.
All right.
I
Takeaway
think
number
my
three.
third takeaway, my third and final, is
Yeah.
I think last year we found some defensive studs in the draft. And I'm talking, and we know this, but we're talking Nick Herbig, and I'm talking
Mhm.
Corey Trice. Nick Herbig had an unbelievable preseason, just like he had a great season last year, and I think he's really ready to take that next step. Marcus Golden, if the listeners aren't aware, was going to be the fourth edge rusher like he was last season, but he decided to
Retired.
retire. Right.
Hmm.
So now we're left with really three guys, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, and TJ Watt. And I think Herbig's not going to be a backup. I think they're going to utilize him, whether they have three edge rushers on at a time or not. I think he's going to take a really big step this year. So I'm excited for him. And then I'm excited for Corey Trice. Corey Trice got hurt early in camp last year, tore his ACL, even though he started looking really good early in camp. And he kind of came on and had a decent, supposedly a really good camp and then a decent preseason.
Hmm.
He only had two passes against him, which were both caught because they were screen passes, but he tackled him for -1 yards. And I don't know, I've seen a lot of good things out of camp on Corey Trice, and I'm really excited to see his growth. And I believe he had some runs with the first team within the last week or so. Now I think Joey Porter Jr. and Dante Jackson were out, but
Hmm.
still, I think Corey Trice is going to be an impact player, and I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, and I saw something that said Nick Herbig has had a sack in every single preseason game he's played in.
Really,
I'm
that's
not
crazy.
sure if that's 100% true, but I read that. So it might be worth a fact check. But you're totally right. I mean, he in things that I've read, he's our MVP of the preseason. He's done phenomenally well throughout the preseason. So don't know if you want to fact
Yeah.
check that or look for it, but while you do that, I'll give you my third takeaway. And my third takeaway is I'm just happy to have a reliable punting game. Um,
I love that. I forgot
I
about that one. I love it though.
I think people probably think I might be off my rocker sometimes in terms of always bringing up special teams in our podcast, but it's it's a third of the game. Um, it's one of the three pivotal parts of the game, and so to have a reliable punting game in Cameron Johnston is really exciting. In other news, Presley Harvin, he was picked up by the 49ers and he got cut, so he didn't make the team there, um, just for what it's worth. But
Yeah.
we're going with Cameron Johnston on the Steelers for our punter, and I'm just excited to have a position solidified where we don't necessarily have to worry about it and can feel like we can flip the field when we have those bad drives because they are inevitable.
Yeah. No, I mean, and we talked a lot last year about how the punting game really hurt us. And
Yeah.
I think it will be a difference maker, especially with the kickoff. I know that's not punting, but I mean, special teams is going to be a major portion to this season. So having a good punter, I mean, I'm pretty sure I heard something about how he would have had like the longest net average yards punting in a game for the Steelers if it had been a regular season game during one of the preseasons. So, I mean, yeah, he's been awesome. To fact check you on the Nick Herbig, I don't know about game wise, but he did have 3.5 sacks both last year and this year in the preseason.
Okay.
So I do believe that would be true.
That's awesome. Good stuff. Okay, so moving away from the preseason, I think one thing we should do, which happened this week, is Steelers finalize their 53-man roster. And I think it's worth quickly kind of going through that roster. And we've done this in the past, a little bit of a comparison of each
Yeah.
positional room based on last year, on the previous year, and essentially figuring out if, we're worse and or if we're better or if it's kind of a wash. Again, we've done this before. I think it's really challenging to not say that we're better in every single area.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's something that I might struggle with as we walk through this, but nonetheless, I think it's worth a go, and I
Yeah.
think we should kind of just go over these, and maybe we don't have to go into too much detail. But do you want to start with offense, or do you want to start with defense?
We'll start with offense and we'll start with
Okay,
the quarterback room.
start with the quarterbacks. Our 2024 quarterbacks: Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Kyle Allen. Um, Probably our one, two, three in that order, at least as we believe it to be true today. Going
Yeah.
off of last year, it's completely flipped. Three new players and three players departed. Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph were our three quarterbacks last year. For me, I think there's no question about it that this room is miles better.
Yeah.
You have a Super Bowl winning quarterback with experience. You have a guy who's played multiple seasons on the Bears, and I would argue that he just hasn't been in a good coaching system and has a lot of talent. Um, and Kyle Allen has a few years of experience under him as well. Versus, guys who, I don't know, just didn't cut it, right? Mason Rudolph spent his entire time with the Pittsburgh Steelers, only been in one system.
Right.
Trubisky just didn't cut it with the Bears and then Buffalo and Kenny Pickett. We drafted him, and he had an awful offensive coordinator to start. And who knows what his skill set actually is at this point. So
Yeah.
I think we're miles better in the quarterback space.
Yeah. I mean, even if you argue that Kyle Allen's the worst out of the six quarterbacks we mentioned, I think the two we have in the room now are better than the other three. And I think it's not even close. So, I absolutely think we got better.
Yeah. So running backs, Najee, Jalen Warren, and Cordero Patterson. It's very similar to last year, which was Najee, Jalen Warren, and Anthony McFarland.
Yeah.
We're also listing, we can talk about this in tight ends too, but we're also listing Connor Hayward as a fullback / tight end. And I think we might see some utilization there at fullback. And last year he was also listed on the depth chart as a fullback. So essentially
Yeah.
what we're looking here is a trade of Anthony McFarland for Cordero Patterson.
And I think this is
I
an
don't
easy one.
Yeah, I don't really know exactly what Cordell Patterson's role is going to be in the offense, but he's
No,
a
me
gadget
neither.
player.
Yeah.
And to me, years of experience and definitely at the returning position, I think he brings a lot more to the game. So I think this is an improvement.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Cordero Patterson, I just think, just has a better skill set than Anthony McFarland.
Yeah. Ready for wide receivers?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. So this is a big one because there's been a good amount of change here in this room as well. We kept 5 wide receivers: George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, and Scotty Miller. Big change from last year in
Yeah.
which we had George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Deontay Johnson, Calvin Austin, Gunner, Olszewski, and Miles Boykin was a
Holy
sixth,
cow.
kind of a gunner on special teams, right?
That's
So
an ugly room.
yeah, and we kept 2 of those guys, George Pickens and Calvin Austin. The other 4 are gone. Deontay Johnson left via trade. Allen Robinson, I think he got picked up by the Giants, got cut.
Yeah.
This week, Miles Boykin also got cut, and I couldn't tell you where Gunner is. So we're looking at a much younger and a much newer wide receiver room. So what are your thoughts on this?
Wow. When I came into this thinking I would say we have a worse wide receiver room, but that receiver room last year is pretty gross. Here's what I'll say. At the beginning of the year, I did have a lot of I thought Allen Robinson was going to be a really good pickup, and I thought Calvin Austin would take a big step. We knew Miles Boykin wasn't going to play receiver, and Gunner we didn't really think would make an impact either. I do think that I will give it better beginning of last year because of the Deontay Johnson George Pickens combo. Those two are better than any of the two we have this year. I will say though, a caveat. I think there's a lot of, like we talked about, there's a lot of upside in our room this year. But I think just because of Deontay Johnson, I'm going to say worse this year.
I'm going to say the same thing, and for the reason of we don't really know what we have
Yeah,
until we see Calvin Austin utilized and we see Roman Wilson back. Like I said, I think Van Jefferson cuts it at the number two
yeah,
position for a little bit. And Scotty Miller is a versatile guy, but he's not, a stellar wide receiver in the NFL. So
yeah.
I agree. I think we're a little bit worse there.
Okay.
Okay, similar vein, we'll go to the tight end room. Pat Fryermuth, Darnell Washington, and Michael Pruitt, who came over to us from the Falcons, versus last year, Pat Fryermuth and Darnell Washington. We only had two, if that's right.
Because
So we
they
kept
just listed
six.
Connor Hayward, I think, as a fullback, but
Yeah,
he
but
was
we
a
kept
tight end.
six wide receivers. Yeah, so
Right.
last year. So um, basically, we're adding in Michael Pruitt. So what's your take on his addition and how that improves or doesn't improve the room?
I mean, I think it keeps it pretty stagnant. But I will say, I think I will give it an overall positive because of his uh, familiarization with the offense. I think that helps this offense. Him, Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller helps this offense kind of the guys on the team learn the offense faster, and I think that is valuable. So I will say, Michael Pruitt makes us better.
Okay, fair enough. I don't have much to argue there. I don't really have much, honestly,
Yeah,
to
it's
say
kind of the
differently.
exact same.
Yeah. You want to go ahead with the offensive line and introduce these guys?
Yeah. So this year we have Spencer Anderson, who was one of our picks last year, James Daniels, Troy Fatanu, Zach Frazier, Broderick Jones, Ryan McCollum, Mason McCormick, a draft pick this year, Dan Moore Jr., and Isaac Sayamolo. So a lot of the same guys. Half of them I think are the exact same, and half are different. And then last year we had Isaac Sayamolo, Spencer Anderson, Mason Cole, James Daniels, Nate Herbig, Chuks Okorafor, and Dylan Cook. What do you think about that?
To me, we don't have a stud on our offensive line. And there's so many guys that I think we just don't really know about and know how they're going to perform. My gut wants to tell me it's a wash and that we don't really have an improved or a worsened offensive line. That's what my gut tells. I know we tried to build in the offseason and through the
Yeah,
draft. And so there's hope in the potential for some of these younger guys. But for me, I don't know what Zach Frazier is going to be. I don't know how improved or not he's going to be from Mason Cole. Spencer Anderson was a guy we drafted last year and didn't really play much. And
yeah,
so now it seems like he's finding his way onto, I don't know if he's going to start or if he's going to be a depth piece. Like you said, Mason McCormick's new. I don't know much about, Ryan McCollum. So I'm torn. I think I kind of want to cop out and take a wash.
yeah. I forgot to mention Broderick Jones and Dan Moore, but they're on our team still. I will say I think the starting five got better because I guess depending on injury, but Fatanu should slot in for Dan Moore, and I do think whether he starts strong or not, Zach Frazier will be better than Mason Cole, and that's
Okay.
not really saying a lot. So I do think the starters got worse. I think the starters got better. The depth got worse. I feel like having Dan Moore, Broderick Jones, Chuks Okorafor, who had like the last two guys who had experience to tackle, end up being potential backups along with Nate Herbig. I just feel like that was better. Whereas this year we're relying on Spencer Anderson, Ryan McCullum, who barely like this is like the first team he's really made. He hasn't played
Mhm.
much football. Mason McCormick, who's a rookie. I just don't think we have great depth at the position.
Fair enough. I mean, I think that's totally warranted. So I can agree with that for sure. All right,
Cool.
let's flip sides of the field. Where you want to go? Let's start maybe in the back of the field and go safety. Um,
I'm in. Let's do it.
Minka Fitzpatrick, Deshaun Elliott, Demonte Casey, Miles Killebrew, and Jalen Elliott this year compared to last year, Minka Fitzpatrick, Miles Killebrew, DeMonte Casey, and Keanu Neal. Um, I think this room's worse.
Wow. Okay.
I think Keanu Neal last year really stepped up in some instances. Um, and I think DeMonte Casey did the same thing. And so I'm hesitant with what a with what a Deshaun Elliott might do. Um,
Yeah.
we still have Casey Killebrew is to me more of a special teams piece, and I don't know much about Jalen Elliott. Um, but I think losing Keanu Neal hurts a little bit.
Okay. I think we actually got better. I think partly that is because of scheme. Minka Fitzpatrick is gonna go back to playing, the center fielder, what he calls Minka ball, because of the Deshaun Elliott signing. So I think for that reason we're better. I also think Deshaun Elliott at this point in time in his career is better than Keanu Neal. Keanu
Okay.
Neal ended up being more of like a sub package linebacker, whereas I think Deshaun Elliott will be able to be a pretty good DB. So, and they're really high on this Jalen Elliott guy. I mean, he had a really good camp, really good preseason. Nobody knew if he'd make the team or not. He ended up making the team. And I think he might just be a core specials teamer, kind of like Miles Killebrew, but maybe not. Maybe he'll be able to pop and give us something on defense. So I think overall the safeties are better.
Love it. Okay, cool. Not mad at that. Let's move to corner next. Um,
Man.
man, you want to lead it off?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess so. Our defensive back, or I guess our corners are Beanie Bishop Jr., the undrafted rookie out of West Virginia, Dante Jackson, Joey Porter Jr., Darius Rush, and Corey Trice Jr. Last year we had who did we have? We had Levi Wallace, James Pierre, Patrick Peterson, Joey Porter Jr., Chandon Sullivan, Desmond King, and Elijah Riley.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that I'd go into this thinking that the Nickelback was worse, but Chandon Sullivan, Desmond King, and Elijah Riley does not make me feel good.
We didn't
It's
really have anyone.
no, and I mean Beanie Bishop's a big unknown. He's an undrafted rookie, played pretty well. They obviously feel comfortable in him with him, but I think he's like gonna be our main, slot corner, and that's a little I don't know. That's a little scary. Darius Rush, Corey Trice were both on the team last year. Obviously, Corey Trice was hurt. Joey Porter Jr. I do think Dante Jackson's an upgrade over Levi Wallace and Patrick
Yep.
Peterson.
Yep.
So I guess for that reason, I'm going to say we're better, but I don't, I think it's very similar.
I'm gonna say we're better for a little bit of a maybe a technical reason in
Okay.
that we're doing the week one comparison and not the week nine comparison, but knowing that Cam Sutton is coming back
Fair.
and essentially is part of the team once he gets done with his suspension. Um, to me, that adds even more, I don't know, depth
Yeah.
there
That
and
makes the
solidifies
Beanie
that
Bishop
piece.
question less of a question
Yeah,
because
but
you know
at the same
halfway through the
time,
year you have Cam Sutton.
yeah, but if Beanie Bishop plays well for the first 8 weeks,
Yeah.
that's the Mike Tomlin question of just because someone's was the starter beforehand, does that mean that they're going to come and plug right in if that other player's doing well? So
Yeah.
um,
I like
I don't
that
know what
take.
will happen there.
And
So,
I think
but
that's
I
important to
think that's
remember.
yeah, I think that's an improvement.
Yeah. And Corey Trace, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, he seemed to be pretty high on Corey Trice. So
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, linebacking room a little bit different.
We going
Let's
inside or outside?
we can go outside.
All right.
T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig this year compared to our outside linebackers last year. T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, and then Marcus Golden, like you said. So we lose Marcus Golden, right?
Yeah.
Where did we make up that additional position? Do we have an extra
We have 8
inside
defensive
linebacker?
linemen.
Okay. So that's where that depth is.
Yes. And I will say part of that defensive line group is DeMarvin Leal, who has played edge rusher during the preseason.
Okay.
So he's not officially that, but you could consider him edge rusher.
Okay. So I think no need to really go too far into this. The only thing that happened here is we lost Marcus Golden.
And I think we're worse because of that.
Yeah, it's a depth piece, right?
Yeah. And he
All
played
right.
well last year.
Yeah, yeah. Moving to the inside, Patrick Queen, Landon Roberts, Peyton Wilson, Tyler Matakevich, and Mark Robinson. And I want to put a little asterisk here with Cole Holcomb, who's is he
Yeah.
on physically unable to participate or is he on IR?
He is on the physically unable to perform list.
Perform.
PUP. Yep.
PUP. Okay. So
Pup
that's
list.
the room this year that made the roster. Last year, smaller room, Cole Holcomb, Landon Roberts, Mark Robinson, and Alexander Kwan.
Yeah, Quan Alexander.
Oh, Kwan Alexander. I don't know why I just said that. My bad.
That's okay.
Commas messed me up. Um, I think this is an improvement.
Yeah. We got one of the best linebackers in football, we
Yeah,
think, we hope, in Patrick Queen, and then everybody else is the same, except for we traded Quan Alexander for Tyler Matakevich, who's going to play special teams. Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer better. Oh, and I forgot Peyton Wilson, who I think is going to be a difference maker this year.
I do too. And I think my biggest question with this room is, are we going to see Mark Robinson step up to the level of play that we think he can?
No.
Or are we going to see crappy Mark Robinson like we saw?
I think he's there as a depth piece. I don't really know what kind of value he's going to add, but yeah, maybe he takes a step forward.
We'll see. Okay. I think we're both in agreement, though, that that room is better with
Yeah.
Patrick Queen leading the way. Okay. Defensive line. So nose tackle, Keanu Benton, Montravius Adams, and then Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, Dean Lowry, DeMarvin Leal, Isaiah Loudermilk, who we keep bringing onto this team, and Logan Lee. Compare that to last year, Keanu Benton and Montravius Adams, both at nose tackle. So there's no change really at that position. Outside of that, Larry Ogunjobi, DeMarvin Leal, Cam Hayward, Isaiah Loudermilk, and Armand Watts. So really the only thing is Armand Watts out,
And Dean
Dean
Lowry
Lowry
and
and Logan Lee in. And I don't
yeah.
know much about these two guys.
Logan Lee was, I think, was our last round pick. I think he was our
Oh,
seventh
from
round pick
Iowa.
from
That's right.
Iowa, and people didn't know if he'd make the team. They thought he'd definitely make the practice squad, but didn't know if he'd make the team, and he did. So maybe he can pop. I don't know if Dean Lowry versus Armin Watts. I thought Watts actually had moments where he was okay. Dean Lowry's a veteran guy, so maybe he can step up too. I think overall we're the same or
It's a
maybe a little
wash.
bit worse. But yeah,
Yeah.
probably just a wash.
I think it's a wash because you don't see any change outside of anything except at those depth roles. So
Yeah. I think I
that's
chose
where we
every
stand.
position as better, almost, except for like one or
Did you?
two. I mean, I said that we were worse at wide receiver, but I had a caveat. And then I think I said we were worse at I don't even know. I think we're better everywhere. Oh,
Okay.
we were worse at
Well,
edge.
well, let's close it out with I think we're better at special teams because Chris Boswell's the same, Christian
Yeah,
Kuntz is the same, and Cameron Johnston is
is so much better. And then you look at the returners, we don't have to deal with Gunnar Olszewski anymore, which is just an absolute positive. Calvin Austin maybe will take a step forward as a punt returner. And then we get the arguably the best kick returner, one of the best
in
kick
the
returners
league.
of all time in Cordero Patterson. So yeah, we're better there too.
I love it.
I, I think we're better overall.
Okay. That's what I like to hear. So let's now move maybe to a little bit forward looking, I guess. Let's run through the schedule really quickly. We
Yeah.
can do a little bit of we've done our win loss predictions in the past. I know you're excited to do this and see what that gets the Steelers to this year. And
I
then I
need
think
redemption.
you need redemption. I don't, we should go back and I actually don't know
I'm
what
pretty
last
sure
year
I
was.
said we would be 12-5 last year.
Okay.
We were not. So
Well, we're always going to be optimistic, right? I mean, we both thought we were going to beat the 49ers in our season opener and we got pumped.
that's true. I think I'm a little bit more optimistic. I caught myself going through this and had to throw a couple more L's in there than I maybe wanted to.
Fair enough. I mean, I think that's fine. I think that's kind of what you got to do, and you got to play the game a little bit. So let's do that really quick, get a record prediction. Then I think you have some props, and I have a
Yeah.
couple questions, and then we'll maybe do a real quick preview of the Falcons game.
Yeah.
Just talk about the line and maybe a stat or two, and go from there. I don't know if you
Cool.
have a stat of the week or a balls of steel or anything. I don't have anything prepared, so we'll see if anything comes up on the fly.
Okay.
Um,
For the schedule, can I give a little insight? I think you got to look
Absolutely.
at this as a split schedule
Okay.
that you really have to look at
Split
it.
between the buys?
Yeah,
Between the buy?
I think that's a huge way to look at it. You got to look at it as there's one half of the season weeks 1 through 8, and then the other half of the season's 10 through 18. And I know that sounds really obvious, but that's how the schedule's made up. We need to do our best and do really well weeks 1 through 8 because weeks 10
Mhm.
through 18 are gonna be very difficult. And so if we come off the gate out of the gate not playing well, our season could end before the bye week.
Mhm.
All right, I just wanted to throw that out there before we get into this.
Okay. You want to go first?
All right, week 1 in Atlanta against the Falcons, new look Falcons. I have it as a win.
Okay. How do you want to do this? You want me to go like
Yeah,
immediately after you for each
yeah.
game?
Let's just go back and forth on each game.
Okay.
If you
Falcons
have
win.
anything to add, go
Nope.
ahead and add something. All right, week
W.
2, we go into Denver. What do you got?
Win.
Yep, me too. I think we're going to be pretty close here. Chargers, week 3 at home.
Home opener. Lose.
What?
Lose.
Okay, that was not what I was expecting. I have win. Home opener win. Wow. Okay. Week 4, we play at the Colts. I have a win.
I have a win as well.
Okay.
We redeem ourselves from last year.
Right. Yeah, we did lose to them against Gardner Minshew. And
Yeah.
DeMonte Kesey did get kicked out of that game. Okay, week 5, Sunday night baseball or Sunday night football. I'm sorry, I'm still in baseball mindset right now. Sunday night football against Dallas at home.
We redeem ourselves for that home opener loss, and we beat Dallas.
Okay, I have us as a loss there. That was one of the games I had to force a loss in. Week 6, we go out to Vegas to play the Raiders.
Shitty team, shitty loss.
Okay, I respect that because we're going to have one or two of those. I have us winning that game. We beat them
Okay.
last year. I think we beat them again. We come home week 7 and play New York on, again, Sunday night football against the
Mm-hmm.
Jets.
Aaron Rodgers tears us apart. Garrett Wilson, 3 touchdowns. Steelers lose.
Calling your shot. I got to write that down. Garrett Wilson, 3 touchdowns. I also have a loss there.
Okay.
Yeah. All
Okay.
right. Go ahead.
Week 8, Monday night at home. Mike Tomlin doesn't lose Monday night games at home, especially when you're playing the New York Giants to win.
Well, and when you have the giant killer on your team, since we just signed Boston Scott to our practice squad, whose career numbers are 90 carries for 422 yards and 10 touchdowns against the Giants. He will be on the team to play that game. We're going to get a dub. We're going to crush him.
Okay, so I have the Steelers at 5-3 through the first half of the season, heading up
I
to the bye.
I have 6-2.
Okay,
I feel
your
like
losses were where? Dallas and the
Dallas
Jets.
and the Jets.
Okay,
I think if we're anything worse than 5-3, the playoffs is gonna be tough.
okay, and I have losses against the Chargers, the Jets, and the Raiders.
Okay. Can't lose to the
Okay,
Chargers and the Raiders. Can't do it. Go ahead.
we might AFC games. We tend to do that. We win the NFC games, we lose the AFC games.
True.
Week 9, bye week. Nice rest right in the middle of the season.
We
Week
can win
10,
that.
we go to Washington. Hopefully, both of us are at that game in
Yep.
person. Um, that's a win in Washington.
Hopefully the poop pipes hold up. That's a win.
Okay. Baltimore at home. I think we're rolling hot after the preseason and that win in Washington. I think we beat the Ravens at home.
Yep. I have a win. You'll see a theme here. I gave a win for every division home game and a loss for every division road game.
Okay. Thursday night at Cleveland. I have we lose.
Me too. I mean, we've been bad in Cleveland the last couple of years, and we lost there on Thursday night 2 years ago. So maybe last year too.
Yep. I have lose next game against Cincinnati, December 1st.
Me as
That's
well.
week 13. Okay. And home against the Browns, week 14.
Win.
Okay. I have
What
a
do you
win
have?
as well.
Okay.
At the Eagles, December 15th, week 15.
We are bad in Philly. I mean, we're just bad against the Eagles in general, but we are bad in Philly. Remember the last time we played them? We got absolutely stomped. I
Yep.
think we lose again.
I think we have a lose in Philly as well for week
Wow.
15. Week 16 at Baltimore.
L.
Okay. I think we win. I think we continue our beating the Ravens twice in the same year. I think we're going to continue to do it, and
Okay.
everyone's going to be so high on Baltimore at that point. I think we're going to come in and play, and we're going to win 9-6.
You're throwing out some good predictions today. I should write these down.
No, this is bold. This is bold. Week 17, Christmas Day, Chiefs at home.
L.
I have an L as well.
Man, this second half sucks.
Cincinnati at home, Sunday, week 18, last game of the season.
Win.
I have a win.
I do think we could get help there too. I think the Bengals might not be playing for much.
You mean they're going to be
I think they could have the
torn up this
division
season?
wrapped up or
Huh?
whatever. I think the
In a
Bengals.
good way.
Yeah, I think the Bengals might not be playing for much.
Okay.
So wait, what did you do division wise? So for all the listeners too, just to remind you, all of our division games are from week 11 on. So
Mhm.
the first 10 weeks we don't have a division game. The last 8 we have 6.
Yeah, I have Steelers at 4-2 in the division.
Okay, I
Split
have
with
3 and 3.
Cleveland and Cincinnati, and beating Baltimore twice. That's my
Okay,
optimism coming in. So for me, that puts the Steelers at 4-5, the back half of the season, for a wonderful, you guessed it, Mike Tomlin season of 9-8.
dang. Yeah, I had 4 and 5 as well, but I was 6 and 2 in the first half, so I had an overall record of 10 and 7. For how happy we were against about the roster, or at least me, 10 and 7 doesn't feel real great.
Yeah, I mean the fact of the matter is, for every real steal that there is out there for every other team, it's not the real steal. I don't even know what Baltimore would call theirs. Um, who knows? But
The leader of the flock.
it's terrible. Um,
Yeah,
the
I don't know.
fact of
It's
the
just
matter
we
there
were a
is
9
that
and
is
8
that
team last year, and
yeah,
we improved, but how much?
we did, but I think what it boils down to is every team improves, right? Every
Yeah,
team gets healthy again, and
yeah,
there's so many questions that come into play. And other teams have good drafts, and other teams have good free agencies, and whatever it might be. So I think it's kind of status quo right now to be in that mid range, and who knows? I think this is my realistic prediction. I think if you were to ask me about our ceiling and we go through this, it's a little bit different. I think maybe we have a 13-4 ceiling
sure.
versus what our actual record in terms of my thoughts might be. But that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Like I said, I think last year I predicted a little too high, and I think realistically 10 and 7, 9 and 8 is pretty reasonable.
Okay, so mark it down, pencil it down. I I think we're gonna come back and look at this and keep it in your notes, and hopefully you got some of those bold predictions I made too.
Oh, I got it. Garrett Wilson 3 touchdowns, 9-6 L against the. No, we beat the Ravens 9-6. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I
All
came
right,
up with some props. You want me to run through them?
I do. Let's hear it. And you
All
gonna keep
right.
track of them?
Yeah. I got a whole spreadsheet for us. We'll keep track of them way better than I did last year. I forgot about them. So, all right, here we go. Starting off with the offense. This is offense then defense. Who's going to have more rushing yards, Najee Harris or Jalen Warren?
Najee Harris.
If Justin Fields was the starting quarterback week 1, we at the moment do not know that answer. It's probably going to be Russell Wilson. I might have chose Justin Fields, but because he's not, I also agree Najee Harris.
Yeah, I think for me, what I see is Jalen Warren. Obviously, a little bit of a health concern coming into the start of the season, week 1, and maybe a little bit questionable. With that said, even if it was even, I think we utilized Jalen Warren more in the passing game.
Yeah.
So if you were to say all-purpose yards, I might say Jalen Warren wins out in that.
Okay. I like that.
But rushing yards, I think Najee takes the cake. It's
Yeah.
a prove it year for Najee too, right?
Right. And Najee's I mean, he's had 3,000 yards his last 3 years. So I mean, or
Yeah.
1,000 yards his last 3 years. So I mean, he's a good running back. I think he has something to prove. So I had written down from last year, Najee Harris had 1,035 yards. Jalen Warren had 784. So it
Yep.
was kind of close actually. All right,
Yeah.
does Najee get over 1,000 yards again?
Yeah, he does.
I agree with that. All right, we're both in agreement. George Pickens over 1,000 yards or under 1,000 yards?
Under 1,000 yards.
Under. Wow, I'm
Hmm.
going over because who else are they throwing to?
That's a good point. I mean, you think about he gets big catches when he gets them.
He had 1,140 yards last year.
Okay. Can I revise mine?
I guess so.
I think
Yes.
that's kind of a stupid answer on my
All
part.
right, here's a good one. Who's going to be the second leading receiver on the team?
Pat Fryer.
I like that. I'd love to save this as a TBD. Whoever we pick up. But in
If
real,
we pick someone up.
yeah, in reality, I think Calvin Austin.
Okay.
I think he makes a big step. He's our big play guy. We know Russell Wilson, one of his best traits is the deep ball. And I think Calvin Austin can create some noise with an offensive coordinator that actually knows how to use him.
I'm reading into the hype. I think we see Pat Fryermuth breakout year.
I love
And
that.
it's George Kittle-esque to me.
Okay. All right. I mean, Arthur Smith loves the tight end, so hopefully he can get a lot out of him. Okay. Kind of on the same vein. Does anybody who's not named George Pickens have over 650 receiving yards?
Hmm.
For
Yeah.
reference, Deontay Johnson had 717 last year in 13 games.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's Pat Fryermuth.
Okay. I'm going to go with no
Okay.
because I think we're going to spread it around a lot more. It was really a two-man show last year. I think we have a lot more options this year.
Okay. 650 over 17 games is what? You have a calculator?
Yeah, I can
I'm
do it
good
real
at
quick.
math, but I'm not good on the fly. Those are big numbers for me. 650
650 divided
divided
by
by 17,
38 a game.
38 yards a game.
That's
Yeah.
actually nothing.
Well, assuming he stays healthy, right? I mean, but for a tight end, that's, in the past, I feel like that's kind of on the money.
Yeah, I can
Um,
tell you Pat Fryermuth last year. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? He had 308 yards
yeah, and he was
in
hurt, and we didn't
12
use him,
games.
and yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So I guess I can tell you the year before he had 735, 32. That's his career high. So we'll see if he can get to 650 again. All right, over under 20 pass touchdowns for the team.
it's well, okay. How many
Okay,
did Russell Wilson have last year?
yeah,
16.
we had 13 as a football team last year.
Yeah, I
Russell Wilson
know.
had 26, Justin Fields had 16.
He had 26. Fields had 16. Okay, I think this number has to be over.
Yeah,
I said that last year, and it wasn't. But um, I feel
I
like
agree.
last year was so much of an anomaly.
I
Um,
agree. I just don't think the offense can be as bad as it was last year. I'm kind of saying that hoping it's not, but I really do think Arthur Smith helps us take a step forward.
mhm.
Okay, staying with the QBs, who is the quarterback week 10 in Washington, D.C. when we're there?
It's Justin Fields.
Damn. Yeah, I agree. You actually
Did
think
you
it's
want me to
Justin
say
Fields?
Kyle Allen? Yeah, I think Justin Fields is going to come in week 5.
Wow, okay, making that down. Jeff, week 5.
No, actually, after that Chargers loss, I think he's going to come in week 4.
Yeah, I mean, all the rumors are, and we could talk about this now since we're bringing it up. It does sound like it's going to be Russell Wilson starting, Justin Fields as the backup. But the rumor is, at least from guys like Adam Schefter, is Russell Wilson will have a short leash. Short leash, and like I said, the beginning of the year we can't mess around. So if Russell Wilson comes out bad, we got to get rid of. We got to put somebody else in. So
Yeah,
I think by week 10, Fields will be the quarterback.
and I hate to say it too, but I think Russell Wilson's a little fragile. He's coming in a little bit, with that injury that he had.
Yeah,
He to me, I'll be honest with you. Here's how I break down the two quarterbacks in terms of, kind of a mobility perspective. I think Russ is a mobile quarterback, right? Like he has ways that he can get out of the pocket. He
yeah,
can scramble if he needs to. He's not a stand in the pocket, boring kind of quarterback.
no,
However, I think if the pocket collapses, Russell Wilson's going to tuck the ball and take a 2-yard sack. Justin Fields is
okay,
going to be a 50-50 player where he's either going to scramble and get a 10-yard sack and a sack fumble, or he's going to scramble ahead and he's going to get a 16-yard gain.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a lot more exciting to watch Justin Fields than it is Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson is going to be a safer player. I don't know how that's going to translate to the passing game. I hope we see a lot of movement and boots and passing on the run, because I think a lot of both of those guys can play to that well.
Yeah.
But I really do view that. And to me, what I'm getting at is I think Russell Wilson is going to take a lot of sacks.
Yeah.
And I think that obviously has a higher likelihood of him getting hurt too.
Yeah, I mean, I think both guys fit this offense pretty well. Russell Wilson, if you think about his Seattle days, did this, run the ball a lot, and then, make some plays on second and third down in the passing game. And Justin Fields, with his ability to run the ball on the QB run, I think really fits the offense too. What I really think this could come down to, and it's very similar to what you're saying, is it could come down to the performance of the offensive line. If the offensive line struggles out the gate, and like you're saying, Russell Wilson takes a lot of sacks because of a bad offensive line, Justin Fields can get away from it a lot easier and will get away from it more. And so I think that could be a driving force to who becomes quarterback, just how bad the offensive line or how good the offensive line is. If they're holding up, Russ might never lose the job.
Yeah, so true.
All right, switching over to the defense, we can run through these pretty quickly. Defense, over under a top 10 total defense in total yards, and I think we both already gave this answer, but...
Yeah. We're going to be the top 10 for sure.
Better. Yeah. Okay. Who's going to be our tackle leader? Oh, so I guess for total defense, just so you know, we were 21st last year. Hopefully we could take a step forward. Our tackle leader last year was a Landon Roberts with 101 tackles. Who do you think leads us this year?
I was thinking we were going to be in that middle linebacker, area as well. If the Landon Roberts done it, that makes sense, but I'm going to go with Patrick Queen.
Okay. Do you want to take a guess on how many?
114.
Okay. I'm going with, I considered Minka here, but again, Minka's playing like center field again this year.
Yeah, good point.
So I don't think he's really going to be getting a lot of tackles. Maybe Deshaun Elliott, but I really do think, and I think the defense will be better, which means the safeties won't have to make as many plays. So I'm going to stick with Landon Roberts. Guy's a hitter, and I think he'll be a lot more downhill, especially in the run game, which might put him above Queen. I'm going to give him 115.
All right.
All right, over under 15 sacks for TJ Watt.
I'm going to say over. Man, I think he's going to get after it.
So he had 19, 5.5, 22.5, and 15 his last 4 years. I don't think he's played a single season healthy. I don't think he's played a full season. Let me confirm that real quick. He's played in 17. Okay, last year he did play in 17 games.
But he got pulled from some. So
that's right. He left early. Okay, the year before 10, 15, and 15. So, I mean, that 2021 season, 22.5 sacks in 15 games is crazy. I agree. I think he's going over. Alex Highsmith, over under 10 sacks. His last 4 years, 7, 14.5, 6, and 2.
Under. And I'll go as far to say I think our second highest sack leader will be Nick Herbig.
Leads me into my next question. I took over for Alex Highsmith, I think because I kind of mentioned this earlier. I think the offense is going to be better, and we're going to have more leads, which will allow the defense to be better. First of all, because they'll be on the field less, but also I think it will allow the pass rush to get going because the other team's going to have to throw the ball a little bit more. I think TJ Watt gets blocked a little bit stronger this year. Don't let him wreck the game. I think he's still going to. I think Highsmith has another big year. My third sack question was over under 7 sacks for Nick Herbig.
I think he's over.
Okay, if you said under 10 for Highsmith, Herbig's over. I think I'm going to go with under. I really think he's going to be right around that 7 number, but 7's a lot for a backup edge rusher.
Sure,
or 8, I guess. All right, interception leader. Last year we had 4 guys, KZ, Alex Highsmith, Patrick Peterson, and Levi Wallace, who each had 2. Who's going to lead us this year?
I'm going to go with Deshaun Elliott.
I love that. Okay, this was an easy one for me, and leads me right into my next question. Minka Fitzpatrick for me, I think he gets back to being the Minka of old. He had 0 interceptions last year. The year before he had 6. And then he had 2, 4, and 5. I think he gets back to that kind of player, especially playing Minka ball. Over under 4 picks for him.
Under.
Over for me. I think he really, really, really makes a big impact back there.
I love that. I love that. And I'm here for it.
All right, last question. Off the defense, we're going to special teams.
Let's go, baby.
Will Cordell
Longest field goal?
Patterson have a return touchdown?
No, he will not.
Man, no faith. I think he does. If you look at his stats, it's actually crazy. The dude is insane. He did not have an return last year, but let me confirm this. I think like 5 years before that he did.
I'm saying no because I have no idea how these rules are going to play out.
True. I don't know what the kick return is going to be. So last year he didn't have a return. 2022 he had 1. 2021 he had 0. But then 2019 and 18 he all had 1. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of his 10 years. He has or 11 years he has a return. So I think he gets one again.
Okay, I'm gonna flip it here. You can write this in your little spreadsheet. Longest field goal for Chris Boswell. Over under 58.5.
Is this just for Boswell?
Yeah.
Over under what was that?
58.5.
Under. What?
Over.
No way.
Yeah, they're gonna give him a long one on
Where?
a nice day.
You
Denver?
thinking like okay. Are you thinking maybe like Las Vegas?
I'm thinking Denver.
Okay, Denver. I think he has his best chance in Vegas, but wow, that's a long field goal. I hope he does. Good for Boz if he does.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you one question that's not stat related
All right, what's up?
to kind of wrap this up. Who is your? Actually, I'm gonna give you two questions. First question is who is your non-rookie breakout player for the Steelers? And the second question is who is your rookie of the year for the Steelers? And I'll start. I'll give you mine. My breakout candidate for the Steelers, I already told you, is Pat Frymuth.
Love
I
that.
really think he's going to step up, and I think he's going to be utilized pretty heavily in this offensive scheme. Honorable mention went to Keanu Benton. I think he's going to have a really, really good year.
Agreed.
Rookie of the year, I think for the Steelers is going to be Peyton Wilson. I think this dude is going to be a stud, and I think we're going to see awesome things out of him, and I think he's going to find his way on the field.
Okay.
If I took any years, that's totally fair.
No. That's good. I'll start with breakout player. I kind of mentioned him already being the second leading receiver. I'll stick to that. I think this is a breakout for Calvin Austin.
Love it.
We
but under
really liked
650
him.
yards.
Under 650, but a breakout. I think he has some punt return value.
649.
Yeah,
Okay.
has 649 yards, a couple touchdowns, some deep bombs.
Some all-purpose stuff too, right?
Right. I think Calvin Austin's just going to have a really good year. My honorable mention would be Corey Trice. I think by the end of the year, he is our number 2 outside corner with Joey Porter Jr.
Love it.
My rookie of the year would have been Peyton Wilson. I'll change that, though. I think it's actually going to be Zach Frazier.
Really?
Troy Fatanu would make a lot more sense, first round pick, but that seems easy. I think Zach Frazier really comes in and solidifies the center position. I mean, Mason Cole was not good last year. I think him being better at center will make the guards better as well, make the whole offensive line better. I think Zach Frazier is going to be a star.
I hope so, because he is the one that I would say, the most worried about in terms of that positional role.
Well, and on top of that, so I meant to mention this earlier when we were talking about Ryan McCollum. He's our center. He's been on our practice squad the last 2 years, and now he's going to be the backup center behind Zach Frazier. So a lot of inexperience there. Maybe look for them to add another center at some point, but yeah, just something to keep an eye on. Hopefully Zach Frazier's really good.
Okay. Who throws more touchdowns, Russell Wilson or Justin Fields?
Well, yours is easy. You're going to say Fields because he's in by week 5. I'm going to go with, I think, Russell Wilson.
Okay. So you have some faith that Russ is going to be our guy.
I think Russ makes it to the bye. I really do. And then maybe, after a tough Ravens game or something, they give Justin Fields a chance. But I do think they're going to stick with Russ as long as they can.
I'll say this. I'm happy either way. I think Russell Wilson is going to be a little bit less exciting to watch, generally speaking.
Yeah.
That said, I have an ounce of hope that we might run a 2 QB set in some instances in a red zone or in a goal line package.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And we do some, it'd be so cool to see Justin Fields line up as a wide receiver, come in motion or take a screen pass and then throw a pass. Like I would love to see some really cool stuff happen there, and I don't see why it, couldn't happen.
I don't either.
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's a good question.
I think that was a good rundown. We're coming up here on an hour. Let's wrap this up really quickly with preview the Falcons game. We obviously both said wins. Last year, you gave me score predictions for every game, so I'm going to ask you to do the same. I'm smart enough not to give a score prediction. We're just going to let you ride with that. But I will say the Steelers are opening it as 3-point underdogs. Over-under line is 40.5. So that looks to be a score of about 22-19-ish. Falcons. The game's in Atlanta, week 1. It's a 1 o'clock game. And, the Falcons, one thing I'll say is, they're a new team, right? They have a new coaching staff. Kirk Cousins is their quarterback. A lot of production out of Bijan Robinson, their running back last year. And I think we're going to see guys like Drake London and maybe Kyle Pitts, who's their supposedly high prospect tight end, actually have a decent year with Kirk Cousins at the helm. I don't know too much about their defense, but I think this is a game where the Steelers +3, I would take the Steelers all day for that. And I really do think that we're going to come in and take that first game.
What'd you say the over-under was?
40.5.
Man, I'm good. I predict we're going to win 24-17, which is 41 points. So slam the over. No, I think it's going to be a tough defensive game. They have a pretty good defense. I think it's going to take a few games for our offense to truly click, which I know is not good in the NFL. But I think our defense will shine. Did you know we are 15-2-1 all time against the Atlanta Falcons?
No kidding. I did not know
we've
that.
We've won the last 4 times we've played them. I think that continues, and I think we go into Atlanta. There's a lot of hype around Atlanta right now. And I think the Steeler train, the buzz around the Steelers is really falling off. So I think we go in and kind of, have a nice little week 1 upset.
I'll tell you, there's nothing more that I would like to do than start out the season as an underdog.
Yeah.
And come out on top.
We're actually surprisingly better when we're underdogs, so I think it's a good way to start the year.
It's a good position to be in. One thing maybe we can prepare for the next episode is I would love to know how many games last year the over hit versus the under hitting. I would guess that most of them the under hit.
For the Steelers?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I think we hit the under like every game.
Yeah, and you're pretty optimistic to go for the over this game, which I think is pretty bold.
Yeah, that's probably an issue, but yeah, let's hope we start out strong.
We'll see. A couple touchdowns from the offense would be pretty dope. I'd be happy to see that.
Yeah. Hey, before we get out of here, I think it's worth mentioning where else you can find us this season.
Yeah, well, it's going to be posted up on YouTube, so you can find us on YouTube, The Real Steel. Obviously we're still rolling on Spotify and Apple Music, Anchor Podcasts. I think we're up there too. Where else? Is that everywhere?
I think that's it. We're on Instagram. Yeah. What's the YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I should probably pull that up right now.
It's at The Real Steel.
I think it's at The Real Steel Podcast, but let me confirm. If you're watching this right now, you're probably looking right at the screen and can see it while we're recording. We obviously don't have that up. It's at The Real Steel Podcast, but the name of it is just The Real Steel.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to see our beautiful faces, check us out there.
For sure. You can always throw us on at double speed if you need. Hopefully that'll help you get through your day a little bit. But we're happy to be back. It's always good to talk Steelers, and I think we're gonna sit out next week, and then once the games pick up, then we'll be back at you with regular episodes every week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it's a good year.
For sure. All right, Polt. Good talking to you. Take care, and thank you all for listening and hopefully for watching.
Thanks, everyone. Peace.